Hi, Ms. Kim. Always good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for being here. We're going to talk about your favorite subject.
Yes.
Right? We're going
growing
to talk about
cut flowers.
Growing cut flowers.
Yes.
From seed.
From seed.
All right, so get us started.
Okay. This time of year is good for planting. All your catalogs are coming in, or people are inside and they're thinking of what we're going to do. They're ready to get out. So if you decide you want to have a cut flower garden, it's very easy to do to me. Anyway, but it's not that much different from growing anything else from seed. You still need to do your planning, and looking at your seed package will give you a lot of information about growing conditions. If you want to start them indoors, you usually back up from your frost date, and usually it's 6 to 8 weeks. Some cut flower crops take a long time, so it's good to get that head start. Once you've decided on which flowers you want, you may have a particular color palette that you want, all pinks and purples, and you kind of make your plan. You order your seed. When you order your seed, you also need to order some supplies or find them at your nearest box store. When starting seeds, I think it's a real good idea to use the specialized mixes they have. They have a germinating mix is what it's called, and it's a much finer texture. It's easier for the little roots to get in. They usually have put an additive in there. That's a surfactant, so it helps it absorb the water. They're always peat-based, and they're sterile, which is another good thing. You're starting with a clean slate. You're not using, you don't want to use garden soil. I've had some people ask if you can cook the garden soil and
to sterilize it.
You can, but it smells horrible. So it's just much easier to go and get your seed mix. And then what I do, I have 2 different size trays, and that's depending on the size of the seed. You want to put small seeds in here and larger seeds in here. And that would be like a sunflower, a moonvine seed, a zinnia seed. I even start in these. And then these are for your smaller, tiny seeds. Some of them are just almost microscopic. Lobelia, snapdragon. So I've got 2 seed sizes. And actually, these come in longer sheets, and I just cut them to size. And I do that ahead of time. I put my soil in here dry. I don't wet it before I try to get it in there, because that's too difficult to smush wet stuff down in there. So another thing that's really good about these and that you need when you're also ordering is some kind of tray. And a lot of times you can get the trays and the little clear dome that goes on the top. That kind of helps as a greenhouse. You need good light. That is almost the most important thing, other than giving it water and warmth. So
good light, grow lights?
Grow lights, I would definitely use grow lights.
So you would, definitely.
Yeah, and you can get those, they're fairly inexpensive. The other thing I like to do with these is give them bottom heat. So I recommend, and they're not that expensive, and you'll use them year after year, are the heating mats. And I've had people ask if they can use a heating pad like you use. You really can't, because you can't control the temperatures on those, and those also tell you on there, do not leave plugged in and on. So you don't want to start a fire or whatever. And a lot of times those get too hot. So just go ahead. I think you can get them for maybe $50 online, and it's a big heating mat, and you can lay several trays on it.
That'd be well worth it if you're going to be doing this.
Doing this.
Year to year.
Once you get your seeds in and you get your trays ready, you want to start seeding, and what you do is there's a lot of information on your seed pack that tells you when. So most of these you kind of back up. If I start seeding snapdragons now, I can expect blooms in about 14 weeks. So, and you can do succession planting. So 2 weeks later, I might plant some more. Another way to get more blooms off the same plant is to grow. This is a snapdragon. This was started in November, and so it's this big now. And if I want more blooms, this is going to give me one good long stalk when it gets up. These will get almost my size, 5 feet. They're big plants. So what I will do is pinch them, and then these lower segments will keep growing, and I'll get more blooms off one plant. And it only sets them back about 2 weeks. So another thing you can do is when you have all these about the same time, you can maybe cut back half of them, and that way you get some that go on and bloom, and these will be about 2 weeks behind.
Got it.
So you've got more flowers.
Okay.
So what you do is you just go above a set of leaves, and I like to do it when they're about 6 to 8 leaf coming up. So I will go ahead and just snip it.
Okay.
And then that goes in the garbage as much as I want to stick it and grow it. Used to doing that for propagating. So your seeds, when you seed, on your pack, a lot of times it'll give you a germination rate. It'll say 90%. That means if you seed 100 seeds, you'll get 90 of them coming up. Okay. So what I do, if it's lower, usually the lowest you'll ever see is about 80 something. I'll overseed in those, but I just put 1 seed per cell. So what you do is I've got snapdragon seeds on here.
Those are so small.
And they're tiny. They're like pepper. And even though they're look round, they're not. They're many-sided, and so they like to do what I call the snapdragon jump. Oh, so when you're trying to get them in there, so I go really low, and people know not to bother me when I'm seeding, because it's, if you do, like I've just got about 5 seeds here, so I'll just take them. That one went in anyway, so I'll just take it like this and give it a little poke with the pencil. Well, I'm having trouble seeing because I don't have my glasses on. So, and then you'll just take these and roll them in, and you get a rhythm going. And what I often do is I'll stick my pencil in where I left off. So, but anyway, so some of them you might want to. The tiny seeds, you don't need to do much covering. They need to be on the surface. A lot of your seeds, and it'll tell you on the package whether they want light or dark to germinate. Okay. Yeah. So you still put them under the grow light. Still, because once that seed emerges, it needs good light to grow. If it's not, it's going to stretch and be, floppy. Yeah. And larger seeds, I go into this, and this is my fancy tool. You can use a pencil or the eraser part. These are moonvine seeds, and
pretty good size. Yeah.
They need special attention. So what we do is soak these in warm water for about 24 hours. Prior to doing that, we try to poke a little hole in them using like a jewelry loop or some sandpaper you rub, and that makes, when they're soaking, it imbibes the water and the seeds will swell up. As you can tell, these seeds are much larger. Yeah. That's because they've got water in them. So I'll just go through and make little holes.
So those get planted at a deeper depth?
They do. Right. Usually you're going to plant your seed, it's kind of like bulb planting, about 2 times the size of your seed. Got it. If you put it on the surface, these obviously want to be in the dark when they first start up. So, and you want to keep, so I'll just drop them in like that. Just put one on top. And then what I'll do is go back and just push them back down in there. And the soil is, that's another reason I don't wet it at this point. I'll just put them up under there. You can hold these, since they were soaking, you want to go ahead and water them from the bottom. I usually use like a cookie tray. And then what you want to do is put it where it gets warmth from the bottom. If you'll think about it, if you're going to plant your seed outside, you wait till the ground warms up. That warmth and the water just tells the seed to wake up. Okay. So that's what you're doing. It's get up. So, but it's much easier to water from the bottom. And if you leave them on those trays, you don't want to leave them sitting in water. But you can put them back on the tray every time they need water. You water from the bottom.
Because I was going to ask you, how often would you do that? Would you water?
Well, what I do is just watch, and usually it's 2 days, depending on how hot it is. But once I look at it, the soil is a little light colored like this, so I will put this on the seed tray, leave it. And then once you start getting them up about this size, I still bottom water, because if you water from here, it's going to flop them over. But you can tell some of these cells are lighter color. I can see it. So, and it's a little bit lighter, so I would put this on a tray. At this point, I'm also fertilizing.
Okay, so what do you use?
I use soluble fertilizer that you put in water.
Okay.
It's usually going to be an all-purpose, probably like a 20-10-20 or something, but it's I don't use Osmocote or anything. And how often would you
fertilize them then?
I fertilize once a week.
Once a week?
Once a week. The rest of the time they just get water.
Gotcha.
If they dry out in between. So you just set this on a tray with the water and it soaks it up, and you can kind of tell by lifting it that it's had enough water. This one I wanted to show, so if they get waterlogged, where they're sitting in too much water for too long, a lot of times you will get dampening off, which is what has happened here. This little fella just didn't make it. And I think there's another couple. So you're another reason you want to plant more than what you might actually need. You might lose some.
Okay.
Okay, you bottom watered, you have good light, your seedlings are starting to emerge. Once that, I start fertilizing about the true leaf stage. So they've used up their reserve in the seed. So at that point, I want to start fertilizing. I use half strength. And then once they fill out this cell, I will bump them up.
Okay.
And this is what a bumped
up.
That's
the bump up.
That's the bump up. And what you do is you will take a tool and get them out of here and transfer them to another plant. I rarely take a plant from a cell this size and plant it directly outside. It's still too tender at that point. So if I'm going to plant this in the garden and I've already pinched it off, what I'll do at this point is move it outside. Maybe not today, but once the days start warming up a little bit, and they can take colder temperatures, and sometimes you even move them out, move them back in, or cover them with frost cloth. But you want to harden them off before you stick them in the ground.
Important.
So important. And a lot of times this is a plant with more of a taproot, and so I will plant it at the same level, maybe a little bit higher. If the plant has a crown, like this is a digitalis, foxglove, you want to plant it at the same level. So these are both pretty much, this is about the stage I like to move them outside and put them in the ground.
Got it.
Both of these will actually just get moved up to a bigger pot at this point. I'm just now seeding for putting outside. So,
Ms. Kim, we could tell you really love doing this. We can tell.
Yes,
we
yes,
appreciate
I do.
it. We appreciate it so much, and of course your demonstration. So thank you much.
You are very welcome.
Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please click the subscribe button below.